This is the first time we are recording this podcast, and we are keeping the podcast open. We don't have any specific ideas, concept, or titles. So we're keeping it open so that we can explore different ideas, and from there, I hope that we can better understand what our audience want. Then we can further build on the focus where our podcast will be going.
I think it's alright to not have a focus at this point of time because, as what you have mentioned, this podcast is relatively new and we are still exploring. So, I myself, I find that there's no issue to keeping it open. We can always explore different topics, and then from there, we can see how the audience react to it. And so, if they like a particular trend or topic, then we can keep to it. But on the other hand, if we can also keep the podcast open as always, we can always talk about different trends. But my specific focus, however, will still be in education. And at times, I would like to share more about some economics concept. That will be my main focus. And I think that it will be apt if we off this our first podcast with something that's more related to education. And today I think that I would like to share a little bit about how students can retain knowledge better after they have studied. And what I'm going to propose is, yes, I understand that there are different types of learning methods, and I'm going to propose a particular type of learning method that all learners can use. So what do you think about it?
I think it's a good idea to start out the podcast with something that is related to education. And you were saying that there are different kinds of learners. Yes, there are people who are visual learners. There are people who listen. Then there are people who are more hands-on. So ultimately, there are many different types of learners who make use of different learning methods. So what is this type of learning method that you are proposing that can help students to retain their knowledge better?
Well, basically, what I want to share is something called application learning. That is, the moment you learn a particular knowledge, you apply it on the spot so that you apply it at every opportunity you get so that you reinforce the learning and it becomes ingrained in your mind so that you better retain that particular knowledge. And more about the different types of learner. So as you were saying, we have visual learners, we have audio learners, and then we have people who are more hands-on. And there are in fact many different types of learners. They learn by colors, they learn by music. So there are many different types. But I would say that application learning is not just simply one type of them, but all the different types of learners, they can also learn with application learning that is layered on top of their original learning ability. So what I'm trying to say is that, let's say we have, for example, we have in a group setting, we have different learners who come together, different types of learners who come together. Some are visual, some are auditory, and then some are like application, some are music, and so on. And you get them to do project work of some sort, some type of project work where they got to pair up in a group, they got to come together in a group and do a particular project to come up, to discuss and come up with a solution. And they have to do this by applying the knowledge that they have learned. And by applying the knowledge through application learning, they will further reinforce their knowledge and thereby helping all of them to retain their knowledge better. Is that okay?
Well, I think that it is definitely okay. So there are different types of learner. Then on top of different types of learners, there are also people with different kinds of personalities. The personality, some are extrovert, some are introvert. So when you add the layer of the mixture of behavior into this entire matrix, it becomes even more complicated. Then So I want to understand, let's say taking into contact, into consideration the different types of behavior, extrovert, introvert, plus the different types of learning ability. So how will this application learning help all of them to retain their knowledge better?
Alright, so this is how it will go, alright? So let's just imagine a classroom where we have different types of learners coming together, okay? So you don't care about what kind of learning abilities that they have, you just know that there are different learners. And as an educator or as a manager, so you are creating a platform for them to come together to debate among themselves to propose a solution to solve a particular problem that I am proposing right now. So, so they have already learned the knowledge using their particular learning ability, and now they have to come together to discuss, and they have to apply the knowledge that they have in order to come up with a solution, in order to develop a solution. So when doing so, there's three benefits to it. One is when they come together, they learn something called teamwork. Because different learners have different communication styles, and when you have different communication styles, it is inevitable that there might be some misunderstanding. So in order to reduce this misunderstanding, it is very important to create a lot of this kind of opportunities for them to work together, for them to understand their different learning styles, so that they will learn about each other, and they will reduce the communication errors, and thereby better understand each other, and will be in a better position to develop better solutions to any problems that they might encounter in the future. So this teamwork is one of the benefits when they are engaging in application learning. Then besides that, there's another thing called problem solving. So when they are applying this application learning to the problems that they are facing, they are using the problem solving muscles, applying the knowledge that they have learned, and in order to develop a solution. And if they do it constantly, they'll start developing habits of problem solving, and this will in the end be ingrained in their mind together with the knowledge, and this will serve them very well into the future when they come out to work. Because when you're out working, you are always trying to develop solutions to problems that may occur every single day, and you need to have good problem solving abilities so that employers will want to recruit you, will want to retain you, and will want to groom you. And if you are able to have very strong problem solving ability, then I can safely say that a lot of employers will want you to work for them. Then thirdly is, of course, the outcome that we want, that is, if you apply the knowledge that you learn, then it becomes ingrained in your mind. And with that, you will definitely retain the knowledge better than one who hasn't really applied the knowledge before. Why? Why do I say that? It's because between knowledge and real world application, there is a very big gap. Because whatever that you learn at the intellectual level or in your academic, it is based on a lot of assumption that in reality doesn't exist at all. Thereby, when you apply that particular knowledge to the reality, to the real world problem, you will realize that there are a lot of gaps, and you need to fill up these gaps. There are a lot of assumptions that won't that those assumptions that you previously assumed to be there, they totally disappear. And in place of these assumption, you may have to develop new assumptions in order to develop the solution. So what this means is that when you are applying, you are actually adapting your knowledge to the real world application. And in adapting and adjusting this knowledge, you are, in a way, an advance is part of problem solving. So when you keep doing this, right, the entire knowledge becomes burned, ingrained, hardwired into your brain, and that is why you retain the knowledge much better than one who hasn't applied that particular knowledge before.
Okay, I can see that there is a lot of benefits to using this application learning style because it helps to retain knowledge. But just now I discussed about this idea of layering people who are, going down to the details that people, some are introverts, some are extroverts. So different people who are for different types of learners. Then now they are split into extrovert, introvert, and extrovert. So how will this complicate the entire environment?
Well, if you to add on this scenario, then it will definitely complicate the environment because now you have extroverts and you have introverts, and this has always been an issue when managing a class or managing a team. Because let's say now I'll bring up two examples. One example is when you have a lot of extroverts and then you have one single introvert. That itself is a problem. I'll talk about the issues in detail. Then after that, you have the second example, which is you have one extrovert and then you have a lot of introverts working on a team. That itself presents a different kinds of problem as well. So I'll discuss about that in detail. Now let me just go back to the first example, which is a team whereby you have a lot of extroverts, and very few introverts, and that is you have the situation whereby everybody is fighting to be seen and heard. That is among the extrovert, and then the introvert, they may not be fighting so much to be seen and to be heard, and they could be quietly doing their job behind the scene. I'm not saying that they are not doing their work. They could be quietly doing their job behind the scene, but as an observer, it seems like because the extrovert, they keep on expressing their opinions, right, and then the introverts, they keep very quiet. So it may seem to the observer that the extroverts are doing all the jobs and the introverts are not doing are not doing any work at all, or they may seem to be very passive. And when it comes to grading, when it comes to assigning points to whoever has worked the hardest, then it can be very common for educators or for managers to assign more rewards, more points to those extroverts while overlooking the contributions of the introvert. Therefore, it is a challenge for observers such as educators and managers to really look into what's happening, who is doing what, and you have to carefully manage this situation so that you do not overlook anybody's contribution. So this is the first case. Then we have the second case whereby you have a lot of introvert and then you have one single extrovert. Then the dynamics is about the same because the introvert, they will be contributing quietly behind the scene, whereas those few extrovert, they will be constantly trying to get themselves seen and heard. And in this case, right, it may seem overall, it may seem like this entire group seems to be a little bit passive. So when you compare this group to the other group that has more extrovert, it seems like the group that has more extrovert seems to be more active, seems to be more involved in the work that you're given to them. Whereas this particular team where you have more introvert, they seem to be a little bit more passive. So when comparing these two teams side by side, you tend to reward more points to the team that always constantly presents themselves, always constantly make sure that they are being seen, constantly make sure that they are being heard. So in this case, right, it's very important to make sure that you assess properly, you observe in detail whether or not you must look at the merit of the project, the merit of the project, and not just purely the presentation part. So this is a challenge for many educators and managers. And in the second example, whereby I said that there are extrovert, there's a lot of extrovert, and then there's one single, there is a lot of introverts, and then there is very few extroverts. So when it comes to assessing the internal team dynamics, it's very easy for educators and managers to overlook the contributions of those lot of introvert because the extrovert will be always, well, some say that in a bad sense, they say that they're claiming credits of the introvert, but in a way, it's by nature, they are always talking about it. So it seems like by their very nature claiming all this credit, taking all the points and so on. So in this case, it's very important to assess properly the contribution of each and every team member and award the points accordingly. So this is the complication part. And then when you are asking them to do, asking the extroverts or be they introverts and so on, you ask them to do application learning, and you are the one assessing the point. And now it is very important for you to make sure that you are observing and rewarding the points very carefully to the right people, because now you might reward more points to maybe some undeserving people, you see, or you may be under rewarding to someone who is very deserving. So this is very complicated, and you must have experience and the training to ensure that and the willingness to observe and to ensure that you reward carefully. And in doing so properly, right, you enforce their application learning and they retain their knowledge better in that way.
So if that is the case, then what can the manager or the educator do in order to make sure that they are rewarding the right amount of points to the deserving person? Means that they don't reward wrongly. Otherwise, as you were saying, that if they reward wrongly, then they will not learn as much through this application learning. It may backfire and cause them to not learn as much. But if you reward correctly, then it will reinforce their learning. Then they will learn better through this application learning. So what can you do to help introverts to fare better in this application learning?
Alright, so this is very interesting. Okay, so I have three methods. So basically, these three methods is being divided into two groups. One is control management of the conversation to suss out the insights from the introverts. Then the other group is written communication. So under written communication, it is further broken down into two more subgroups. One is written paper, that is, you write insights on a piece of paper, or the other method is to type it out on digital format, such as on your laptop, cell phone, mobile phone, whatever you call it, handphones, on your laptop and tablet and so on. So let me just briefly talk about the first method, which is the control management of this verbal communication. So let me just explain. For example, let's say you gather a group of people to come together to talk about a particular problem, providing solutions to a particular problem. Then you have a mixture of extroverts and introverts, and it is very clear that the extrovert is going to overwhelm the introverts with their insights, right? This is very often the case, because if you give an extrovert 2 to 3 minutes of sharing, he can easily articulate his ideas out within that 2 to 3 minutes, and perhaps even extend further than that. So they might take up 10 to 15 minutes. And that is a very bad management of time. That is a very bad management of meeting, because it is going to eat into the contribution time of other participants. So what you have to do in this case in the verbal communication management of this verbal communication, that is, you have to control the contribution of the extrovert, limiting them to 2 to 3 minutes of sharing. And in doing so, you are helping the extrovert to be more concise in their thinking, to be more concise in their articulation, right? Then, moving on, how would you treat the introverts? How you treat the introvert is that, I would treat the introvert is that, give them more time. For example, give them 10 to 15 minutes. They may feel that it's unfair, but if you do this long enough, you listen to me and bear with me how I'm going to carry it out. Let the introvert present for 10 to 15 minutes, and over time, the introvert is going to get better and better at sharing. Then he will reduce the sharing time, because he's getting better at it. Then eventually it will even out. So why am I doing this? And this is because the introvert takes more time to ease up. They need to have, the idea is within their mind, and they need to structure the idea within their mind, and after that, they need to structure their articulation, the sentences, how they're going to convey the sentences in a way that manages to convince all of us. Even though this may seem like a very simple task for an extrovert, this is actually a very complicated issue for an introvert. And many introverts are facing this particular issue, that is proper articulation of their ideas so that everyone can understand the merit of their idea, the merit of their proposal. So give him some time, 10 to 15 minutes, and sometimes the introverts may fall into the bad habit of saying simply the outcome. For example, I'm the manager, I'm an educator, I'm presenting a particular problem that I want all of you to solve. And this particular introvert comes up, and then what he replies is, my solution to this problem is AI, all right? And he goes straight to the solution without explaining what is this solution about, why is this solution the best solution, and what is it going to entail, how are you going to implement it, where within the organization are you going to implement this particular solution. So he doesn't go into this detail. So as the manager, as the educator, you are supposed to help him to flesh out the details, all right, to suss out the insight in that form, more detail, so that everybody is more convinced. And when you do this enough, the introvert it's going to be his habit, and it's going to be ingrained in him, and he'll be sharing in that particular format, which is going to help him in the long run. And as things goes on, maybe it takes 10 to 15 minutes right now, but after a long certain period of time, it's going to go down to 8 to 10 minutes. Then later it's going to go down to 3 to 5 minutes, and maybe it's going to go down to 2 to 3 minutes. All right. So this is the way how things might turn out to be, and how it turned out to be is up to the educator and up to the manager to help to guide that particular introvert. So this is how I would guide conversation for the verbal communication method, under the verbal communication method. Then next, I shall move on to this written communication, which is further broken down into two subgroups. One written paper, and the other one is digital format. Then now I'll go and talk about this written paper. Okay, so under this written paper, you have to prepare materials like pen, pencil, paper with all the questions written out, and you present a certain problem. You as educator, you as the manager, present the problem, and then you get them to write the answer on the paper. Then after writing down the solutions, their insights on the paper, then you try to group the ideas according to whether are they similar or not. Then once you gather all the similar ideas all under a certain grouping, because most of the time, a lot of people who are working in the same domain function, they tend to come up with the same solution. So after grouping them according to our similarities, then you can get the group to vote on a particular idea, and the idea that has the most vote will win. And this is much better than the loudest wins the game, you know. Voting is a very fair thing. So what do you think about it?
Okay, so I roughly understand what you're trying to get at, because basically what you're trying to say is that we have to get the introvert to talk more, and if they talk more, they'll get into the habit of talking more. And if they get into the habit of talking more, then they become more confident. And if they become more confident, then the outcome will be much better. So it's going to be that way. So you were saying that the first one is verbal communication, control management under verbal communication. The other one is written communication, and what you talk about is the one on written paper. Then what about the one on digital format? Can you talk more about that?
Okay, so you have basically gotten the gist of what I've said. And then when it comes to this digital format, right, it is basically the same as the written paper, but now everything you are going to type it out instead of writing it on a piece of paper. So how does it go? Basically, this is what is going to happen. Now, because you have a lot of software that helps a lot of people who are on remote working arrangement, and it is also, this type of software is also helping people with those people who are studying at home. So what this software basically does is that it allows participants to type out their ideas, and people can actually vote on those ideas online. And when you vote on those ideas, definitely the idea that has the most vote will win. And because a lot of people, they are not so keen on talking to others face to face, so they rather type it out. And this type of software is the best for this type of people. So that's basically how the digital format is going to help with getting insights out from this type from introverts. And if you are a company who is especially keen on getting the best ideas from your employees, then it will be best to invest in this type of software, and it's going to help a lot.
Okay, so what you are saying is that the control management of the discussion for the introvert and extrovert under the digital format is the same as that under the written format, but everything has been turned into a digital format. And companies that are very keen to get the best ideas out of their employees should invest in this type of software because it's going to help them to get higher returns. Okay, so now I want to touch on another thing because of this remote working, because of this studying online, studying at home. So because of all these issues, right? Change in environment, there rises another type of issue, which is cyberbullying. Can you say something about cyberbullying?
Okay, so let's talk about this issue of cyberbullying, and it's going to be a very important topic moving forward because most of us will be working online, and I see that the trend of working online is going to get stronger as time goes by. So let's talk about this topic of cyberbullying, okay? So I foresee that this cyberbullying is going to be more frequent, and we have to put a stop to it continuously because it will always happen. No matter how you try to step it out, it will happen, and therefore we have to continuously step it out. And what we can do is that we have to create a very open communication platform between student and teacher and among the students as well. And if there are enough open communication between among the students and students between teachers and students, then we will be able to build more trust. And if we are able to build more trust, we are able to facilitate more information flow. And why is that important? Let's say, for example, somebody in the class is being cyberbullied, and if there are enough trust between among the students who are witnessing this event will surface the issue to the teacher. And if there are enough trust between the student and the teacher, then the student who is being cyberbullied, he is going to surface the issue to the teacher. And once the teacher or the manager receive this kind of information, they must be able to act on it. So by acting on it, by acting on it means that by stamping out, by putting a stop to the cyberbully, the students will have more trust in the teacher's ability to put a stop to it. And this further strengthens the trust among the students and between the teacher and the student. And with this, you create a very virtuous cycle that facilitates information flow, and then the teacher acts on it, on the information again, thereby stamping out the cyberbullying activity. And this continuous loop will occur and will be aiding in stamping out these cyberbullying activities. And what the upper management must do is they must be able to write out the policy for this and to create a platform, write out the policy for detailing the steps of all these activities: open communication, building up trust, surfacing of the information to the teacher understanding how to act on it, or maybe even create whistleblowing channels for the students to report to the teacher, to report to the management. Then by putting this policy in place, the students and the teachers, they know what to refer to. And as long as you enforce the policy, keep getting the new students to understand what's the policy and how to act upon it, and also getting the new teachers to learn about it as well and train them to act on it. And when this goes on as a policy, it will eventually help to reduce the occurrence of cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, cyberbullying will not stop. But if it doesn't stop, it doesn't mean that we don't stop it. We must recognize the signals, create the channels for feedback, put in the right policies, and this will stamp it out continuously, thereby creating a conducive environment for working and learning. So that's basically what I am thinking about.
Okay, thanks for the insightful sharing. I think that we have already shared a lot. And as I've said, this is our first podcast. We will be thinking of what to share in the future. So at the moment, I think it was a very good discussion between the two of us. We talked about different learning styles, the application of the concept of application learning and how it can help to reinforce knowledge, retain attention. Then we also talk about cyberbullying and how to stop it. So overall, I think that a lot of discussion has gone on and a lot of advisors have been met out and I learned a lot. I think our listeners will learn a lot too, and I hope that in the future we're going to come up with even more insightful podcasts to share with everyone. So with this, I'd like to thank all of our listeners, and we will see you in the next episode.